figure I would pass you the microphone today, and I'm just here to kind of guide the conversation and ask you if it's good for metal or bad for metal, and then it's up to you to elaborate if you think if it's good or bad.
Okay.
Welcome to another episode from Takedowns to Breakdowns with A&P, and today we're here to talk about good for metal, bad for metal. So I'm going to throw some things at you, and since you were so spoken about your take on laptops and all that shit, I figure I would pass you the microphone today, and I'm just here to kind of guide the conversation and ask you if it's good for metal or bad for metal, and then it's up to you to elaborate if you think if it's good or bad.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, let's start off with Lorna Shore. Good for metal, bad for metal?
Always good for metal. Always good for metal. Good for metal, the community, good for the artists in the community because, you know, now artists have something to build off of, being Lorna Shore. So, I think they're good for metal.
Laptops.
We had this conversation already.
So I'm assuming it's good for metal?
You know what? It's a 𝗙𝗥𝗢𝗠 𝗧𝗢 for metal. It's a
it's a double-edged sword?
It's a double-edged sword. I mean, yeah, it works for bands that really need it and really need it in the sound that they create. Obviously live, like I already said, live, you don't want to take away the stuff from the studio, so you're going to need to pump in that stuff. But then it's also double-edged sword because some bands overdo it by making it more of a backing track, and then kind of like what Ozzy does. You know, more of a backing track.
Or Santa Cruz, for that matter.
Santa Cruz is a better example.
Yeah, I think that's a better example.
So it's a double-edged sword.
All right, what about reunion tours? Good for metal, bad for metal?
I mean, I feel like a reunion tour is never a bad thing.
What about like the Pantera one when there's only like really two members?
I mean, it's still not a bad thing. I feel like...
I think it comes down to the consumer, right? Like if you want to go, if you don't want to go.
Exactly. I feel like reunion tours it's a good thing for metal because it's never really a bad thing.
Okay. All right. So what about cover bands? Good for metal or bad for metal?
Good for metal. I enjoy a good cover band, especially because we saw the Rammstein one, and that one was really good. There's certain cover bands that do it really good. I think it's a good thing. Social
media beef between band members, not in the same band, but feuding like band members from different bands. Is that good for metal or bad for metal?
That's also a double-edged sword. I mean, it could be the winner of the conversation gets more publicity. But I mean, in the end, they both
getting publicity.
But one is coming out on top. So I think it's a good thing for whoever wins, bad thing for whoever loses. But in the end...
Do you ever really lose,
But in the end, you're only losing by a small margin.
I don't think there's much losing. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, there is some losing. If you can really damage your brand, then there is losing.
It's like those YouTuber boxers where like they'll have the beef, and then for those couple months leading up to the boxing match, the beef is what's creating so much revenue for both channels. But then once that match happens, whoever wins gets the most of the revenue. Whoever loses kind of fades out into the oblivion. Yeah.
What about metalcore? Good for metal or bad for metal?
Good for metal. I feel like it's good for everyone who likes metalcore. The people.
And if you don't like it, don't listen to it.
Exactly. I feel like that's for every genre. If you don't like it, then don't listen to it. And just don't hate on it. I mean, there's no reason. Actually, I'm not gonna say that because I do hate on some genres here and there. That would be biting my tongue a little bit. But yeah. Just I think it's good. I think it's good for metal because some people also use some elements from metalcore into other genres. So it's kind of like any genre you have. Some elements can be used over to different bands, so I think it's good for metal.
And at the end of the day, if people are listening to anything metal related,
it's always a good thing.
I think it's always a good thing for the community. On a different note, not a metalcore note, but on a different note, what about arena tours? Do you see them good for metal or bad for metal?
I mean, who are you asking here? There's only a few bands that can actually do arena tours.
Yeah, but does it take something away from going to a metal show as far as the experience is concerned?
I don't know why people have the idea that the smaller the venue,
like
the better.
The reason I'm saying this is because there's always that little sell-out thing, like, oh, they sold out, you know?
Yeah, no one ever I mean, these people are also have never been in this situation before. Like, if you're a band and your ideal goal is to live off of your music and off of what you love doing, those arena tours is the biggest step that you're ever going to get to doing that. So, these people, they don't look at it from the band's perspective. The band's perspective is like, we're about to do an arena tour. We're about to play our music to the biggest crowd we've ever played to. And this kind of propels us into a different stratosphere of musicians that we are. So like, I think it's good for metal. There's only a handful of bands that can do it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Especially nowadays. We're not talking back in the day where almost every band could do it. But the bands that can do it, it really does help them. So I think it's good for metal.
And I think it helps. I mean, it helps them more than anybody else.
It helps them, but it also helps. I mean,
especially some bands like you look at Iron Maiden. They're playing in front of massive crowds. They took Lord of the Lost with them on the tour.
Exactly.
I think if you're one of those bands that has that kind of pedestal,
I think you should help.
You should help the upcoming bands.
I think you should not only upcoming, but bands that you enjoy also that you know are not as big as your band. You should always try helping them. You know, push them a little bit more forward. It's always nice to help each other out. And I think in the metal community, sometimes it's lost a little bit. But
I think there is a little bit of a losing of the passing of the baton.
I know a lot of people want to tour with the bigger bands, and they're already a big band. But you know, if you're already a big band and you're already about to do that sold out show based on your band, what's the harm of bringing on a band that you like personally, you like the guys or whatever, and just to help them out? It's always nice to help each other out.
Can't disagree with that. What about Ghost? Good for metal? Bad for metal?
Oh, this is
that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. I mean, because I feel like Ghost has now become very mainstream. They have.
Yeah, but when it comes to award shows like the Grammys and whatever, they're still categorized as metal.
As
under
metal. I like Ghost.
And they could become a gateway band for fans to then reach into other bands.
I think they are good for metal. As much as a lot of people don't like them and don't like to put them as a metal band, and also the fact that they've become more mainstream, a lot of people have moved away from the band because they're like, oh, they're not the ritual band that I fell in love with.
I'm one of those.
Really?
Yeah, I must say I'm becoming.
Listen. I enjoyed the show we went to at the Queen Elizabeth Theater.
That to me was the best one.
That was the best one we've gone to because it was such a small show. So it really felt more intimate between us and the band. But do I see the new fans coming in? Do I get happy when I see people singing their songs or people
no, that doesn't bother me whatsoever.
Posting about or stuff like that, and just watching that band get bigger, become more mainstream, because now those people are going into that band, liking the darker part of that band, moving into darker songs, or liking, the poppier version of that band, moving into different bands that are more poppy. I think it's a good thing you said gateway band, because they are. To me, they are a gateway. Now that they've become as big as they are a massive gateway band. But I think they are good for metal, even though there's a lot of people that don't like them. I think they're good for metal.
What about politics?
Oh,
and I mean politics because some bands. I'm not talking about Rage Against the Machine. They've always been a political band.
Yeah.
I'm talking more about band members using their platforms to talk about politics when their music is not necessarily politically driven.
Okay, because I was gonna say it's a double-edged sword because bands like Straight from the Path.
But those bands always had political connotation.
But if you're listening to that band, you know for a fact
you know what you're getting.
You're gonna get some political shit. So if those guys come out about political stuff, I'm not gonna be like, where did this come from? It's kind of obvious where it's coming from. So I kind of respect their views a little bit more because it's not like they're making like power metal and then they came out about some bullshit happening in the election or whatever. But I don't know, man. I think when you I don't know if your genre isn't like very political, or what you're saying about is not very political,
or not political at all,
and then you come out of left field with some like really like far out there hot take. I don't know if it's good, man, because I'm not thinking
it could really hurt the brand.
Yeah, because I'm not thinking about like if you disagree with I don't give two fucks about politics, to be honest with you, but I don't care like about your political view. You can have whatever, as long as you're making good music and you're not a shit person, we're good. But you have to also see that what you do will affect the people in your band. And
not just you.
And not only your band, it's going to affect the album, the record label you're a part of, everyone who's a part of what your band has been.
Possible bands that you could go on tour with.
Bands that you've already been on tour with. Like, this is like a domino effect. So, Schaefer situation, stuff like that, it really does affect the band. So I think when it comes to, if you're any type of celebrity, or any type of public figure, influencer, whatever you want to call it, when it comes to politics, I think the safest thing to do is to shut up. Unless you were already doing politics stuff on your channel, or if that's what made you big was politics, then go right on it. If you have nothing to do with politics, just to save your brand and to save anything about. And there's not me trying to like silence people. I'm just saying what's best for you, because saying stuff and then regretting it later when it's kicking you in the ass is never a good feeling. Just silently cheer, I guess, for whatever team you're on.
Michael Jordan once said that he didn't say anything about the Republicans because they also buy sneakers.
Oh, I thought you say fuck them keys.
Well, he also said that. But anyways, moving on to the next one. Keyboards. Good for metal, bad for metal.
Good for metal. Well, you don't like
Well, I like a good keyboard, but these days it seems like
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. Like you could throw a stone and you're gonna hit a band that's using keyboards.
Not the player though.
No,
not the player.
Sometimes not the player. Well, yeah, that's true. Well, that took a little bit of time to register, but I get what you're saying now.
Yeah.
So keyboards.
Keyboards are good, man. I mean, they're being very overly used nowadays, but I think when you do find a band that uses them correctly, it's always a nice experience. Like even, this is a band I haven't talked about in a while. Even like Sabaton use like keyboards, but I don't know if they still have. I remember back in the day they had a keyboard player.
No, they don't now.
But they don't now.
No.
But they still use it, and it still brings a lot to the songs. Same with like a bunch of other bands that have keyboards that bring a lot to the songs. But then you always get that one band that overdoes it, and it kind of ruins it for the rest of them. But in my opinion, I think it's good for metal when it's used properly. You know,
not overused.
Never overuse. I mean, that's with everything. Just don't overuse it.
All right. So last but definitely not least, metal bands covering pop songs.
It's good for metal. That's a simple one. I mean, a lot of metal bands have already done that. Diamonds. Who did Diamonds again? Fuck, that was a good one too.
Any Given Day.
Any Given Day did Diamonds from Rihanna. I mean, that's a good ass cover. There's been millions of Alex Terrible ones. You know, covers of pop songs are good because not only is it a complete far out there genre that you're covering, you could do so much with it. There's so much to do with it because now you're adding elements that the song didn't have. So now you really got to go. It's a hard project to do, but yet it's fun in a way to listen to afterwards because you see what they did with something that was never there.
Meant to be there.
Exactly. When they're covering a country song, like a folk band covering a country song, or a band covering like a Iron Maiden song, or even
a rock song like Queensryche on their latest album, they have a cover of Billy Idol, which is fucking phenomenal. But Billy Idol is a kind of a rock icon, so it's not that far of a departure. Yeah, you're having it up and you're putting more keyboards. You're making it bigger. Yeah. You're making it bigger.
I think pop, since there's nothing really there metal-wise to build off of, it makes it.
But it also gives you more of a clean slate, right?
Yeah, and it also makes it more interesting for the viewer to listen into.
All right, so this was an interesting hot takes kind of video.
I know.
We've never done one of these. We need to do these more often. Maybe at the end of the year, we'll grab all the topics that created a little bit of buzz throughout the entire
of 20... Good for metal, bad for metal.
Exactly. At the end of the year, we'll do a review of all the topics that were hot throughout the entire year, and then we can get your take.
That's gonna be like a 20-minute video. But
no. I'm just gonna take the really the hot. The spicy ones for the year.
Spicy meatball.
All right. So on that note, guys, thank you for watching this video and let us know. Oh, if you have some ideas for good for metal, bad for metal, hit us up in the comment section of this video, and we'll see you all next week with another one. Take care.